Okay, please be seated. And then would you state your name for the record and spell your first and last name?
Shawn Hopkins, SHAWN, last name HOPKINS.
May I, Judge?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Sir, did you work with the Oxford High School in November of 2021?
I did.
Okay. And what did you do there?
I was a counselor at the high school.
Do you still work with Oxford School District?
I am currently on leave through the end of the school year.
So you said you were a counselor. What exactly does that mean?
As a counselor, I oversaw my caseload of students. I had approximately 400 students while at Oxford High School. I helped them with post-secondary planning, scheduling. I helped them also with social emotional issues and really kind of working with them holistically throughout their time in school.
Okay, so you said you had about 400 students on your caseload, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, so how many students, if you know, attended Oxford High School in November of 2021?
I believe it was around either 1,750, 1,800.
Okay, so how many counselors were there?
There were 4 counselors with main caseloads, and then we had a counselor who had early college students.
Okay, so the 4, you call them main counselors, would they have a similar type of caseload?
Yeah, we were divided out alphabetically, so we each took about an equal amount of students.
Okay. So you described a few different duties. Did you have any primary responsibilities as a counselor, or did you sort of have a lot of different responsibilities?
I would call it a lot of different responsibilities that were all primary.
Okay.
I don't know that there was one that we would put above the other that I described.
So in your general caseload, did you have regular meetings with students, or was it as an as-needed basis?
Both, actually. We did have a couple meetings per year that were scheduled, especially with seniors. We would meet with them regularly, and then we would meet once per year to go over scheduling and making sure that students were getting everything they needed for graduation, and then at an as-needed basis for any students.
Okay. So tell me about your background, please.
Well, I graduated from college in 2009, actually started as a youth pastor, worked in that role for from 2009 to 2018. I actually crossed over some with my time in the schools. I graduated with a master's in counseling from Oakland University in 2015, served the 2014-2015 school year as an intern at Oxford High School, and then was hired on full-time after that.
Okay, is that where you had been employed up until, from that point up until the time you went on leave?
No, I was at Oxford Bridges High School for the 2022-23 school year.
Okay, what is that?
That's the alternative high school within the Oxford Schools District for students who are credit deficient and at risk for graduation because of their credits.
Okay, thank you. So did any of your responsibilities as a counselor at the high school involve disciplining students?
They did not.
Okay, so who would handle that?
That would have been the dean or principals.
Okay. So November of 2021, Oxford High School, at that point, were students still masked?
They were.
Okay. Was it in-person learning, or was it hybrid, or was it remote?
It was primarily in person. We did have times when we were unable to stay in person due to amount of students out with COVID tracing.
Okay, so it was in person whenever possible. That'd be correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what sort of issues would arise with the students in your caseload in the fall of 2021?
It was a difficult time. Looking back on it, it was a time when it was a lot unknown for students, especially if they would be quarantined at times. You were working with them, making sure they were able to stay caught up. We actually had teachers filming their class as they were teaching their class, oftentimes, to make sure that they were able to keep students engaged even when they were out. So it was difficult from a scholastic standpoint, which in a lot of ways led to it becoming difficult from an emotional standpoint for students, where it just became, the unknown can be difficult sometimes.
What sort of mental health struggles would you see around that time?
We saw a lot of depression, anxiety, students struggling, and we saw suicide ideation and unfortunately suicide attempts during that time.
Tell us, please, what exactly does suicide ideation mean?
It's a difficult one to define for a lot of people, but really what suicide ideation is, or themes, or things which may be related to suicide. So we could see sadness, which in itself isn't suicidal, or we could see depression, which in itself isn't suicidal. But when we see these themes together, sometimes they can be linked with suicide.
Okay. In November of 2021, as well as the previous school year, was Jennifer Crumbley's son one of the students assigned to your caseload?
He was.
Okay. When would have been the first time you interacted with Jennifer Crumbley's son?
To my memory, the first time would have been in the fall of the 2021 school year.
Okay, so what purpose would you have interacted with him then? You would have been a freshman at the high school?
Well, I do know that there have been things we would have done scheduling, we would have done just normal routine things, but I don't have a memory of that.
So when you say scheduling, you mean scheduling classes?
Yeah,
Okay, so that was one of your responsibilities as well?
it was.
Okay. Now, first of all, is Jennifer Crumbley in the courtroom today?
Yes, she is.
Can you point here and describe something she's wearing today, please?
She is to my right, wearing a black jacket.
With the record reflect identification?
The record will reflect the in-court identification of the defendant, Jennifer Crumbley.
So in the defendant's son's freshman year, that's the fall of 2020 into early parts of 21, do you have any recollection of interacting with him?
I don't.
Okay. Now, did you interact with him in the, if I showed you an email, would it refresh your recollection if you met with him in the spring of 2021?
I have seen this email. I don't have memory of the meeting, but it's been documented.
Okay. This is exhibit, I don't believe we have an objection to exhibits 155 through 160.
I'm sorry, let me just double check here. That's correct, 155 through 160.
You don't have an objection to any of those?
No.
Okay, 155 through 160 are admitted.
Mr. Hopkins, I'm going to direct you to the screen right in front of you. This is exhibit 155. Portions obviously are redacted. This is a copy of an email. Is that correct?
It is.
Okay, and sent from a staff member of Oxford High School?
Mm-hmm.
You have to say yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us, please, it was addressed to you May 13, 2021, 1:46 p.m.?
That is correct.
Okay, what does the email say?
It's, hi, when you get a chance, can you call redacted down and see how he's doing? He's failing my class and tries to sleep all the time in class.
Okay, so this was in reference to the defendant's son?
That is correct.
This is a portion of the same email thread, also May 13, 2021. This is 2:07 p.m. And what was your response?
It says, I'll catch him before the end of the day.
Okay. And then did that staff member respond to you?
Yes.
And what was that?
Thanks. Just a little worried.
Okay. Now, do you recall having a conversation with the defendant's son in May of 2021?
I do not recall this meeting.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been admitted as People's 156.
Mm-hmm.
This is, remember, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. September the 8th, 2021, 8:23 a.m. This is an email from a different teacher to you. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And could you read us, please, what the email says?
Hi, Shawn. Could you please touch base with student? In his autobiography poem, he said he feels terrible and that his family is a mistake. Unusual responses for sure.
Okay. Did you respond to that email?
I believe I did.
Okay, so this is your response, September the 8th, 2021, 9:15 a.m. What is your response?
Thanks for the heads up. I'm in senior meetings throughout the day, but we'll try and catch up with him.
Now, do you recall that interaction with the defendant's son?
In this case, I did not have a direct interaction with the defendant's son. I talked with the teacher.
Okay, and tell us about that, please.
I had a conversation with the teacher, and she explained to me a little bit more context of what had gone on. She explained that he was
Your
joking.
Honor, I would object to the hearsay.
It's not offered for the truth of the matter, sir. The judge just offer what he did next and what.
Okay, so what did you do next?
So I had a conversation with the teacher who gave me greater context of what was going on within this. And she stated that he was
Your
actually.
Honor, I would object
I
to
don't think it was clear to him.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Based on your conversation with the teacher, what did you do next?
Did you?
I did not
Call or
have a
email?
meeting. I did not have a meeting with the student
Okay.
at this time.
And did you send an email to either the defendant or her husband, or a phone call to either the defendant or her husband?
I did not.
Okay, it's all right.
Okay.
Now, in Oxford High School, are grades posted so parents can follow along?
They are.
Okay, and what system is that?
That is through a system called Power School.
Okay,
They are given live updates through that system.
and that's every parent of every student registered in Oxford School District that can follow along with assignments and things of that nature.
Yes.
And our parents also provided emailed updates to Power School.
I believe that they can get notifications through the Power School system.
And that's sent to email?
I am not sure.
If you
how that is.
know, that's all right. All right. Now, this was September the 8th, 2021. I'm going to show you People's Exhibit 157. Now, this is November the 10th, 2021 at 2:45 p.m. This is an email to you. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And can you tell us what this says, please?
Student is having a rough time right now. He might need to speak with you.
Okay. And then your response at 4:44 p.m. on November the 10th, 2021 was what?
I'm sorry, I was in a meeting through the end of the day. I'll catch up with him.
Okay. And did you catch up with him?
I did the following day.
Okay. Tell us about that, please.
I had a quick meeting in the hallway on his way to class and just let him know that if he needed somebody to talk to, that I could be there for him.
Okay. Now, did you contact either that student's mother or father at that point?
I did not.
Okay. Did you send an email?
No.
And why not?
Because it was something that was very typical. I didn't have any information on the student other than he was sad, which to me is a pretty common thing and a normal thing. And I just wanted to be able to offer a bridge that if that student wanted to talk.
Okay. And you offered that bridge to the student?
I did meet with that student in the hallway and offered that opportunity.
Okay. And for the record, that was General Crumbley's son, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, the next time you had any interaction with the defendant's son was November the 29th, 2021. Would that be right?
Yes.
Okay. This is Exhibit 158. Sir, this is an email to you that eventually was forwarded. Is that correct?
This email was eventually forwarded to me fairly quickly after it was sent to the two on this email.
Okay, so this is Monday, November 29th, 9:32 a.m. Can you read us, please, what the email says?
I have a student during first hour today, defendant's son, who is on his phone looking at different bullets at the end of first hour today as I was walking around the room passing out their essays. I didn't get a chance to investigate it a bit further since it was the end of the hour. Now that he's on my radar, I'm also noticing some of his previous work that he's completed from earlier in the year leans a bit toward the violent side. I can bring these things later today during my 5th hour prep if you would like them.
Okay, so this was 9:32 a.m. and you weren't on the initial email, but it was forwarded to you.
It was forwarded to me.
Okay, and tell us what happened next, please.
At this point, I received a phone call from Pam Fine, who was on the original email, asking if I would be able to come to her office. She was planning to call down the student and meet to discuss the contents of his email.
Now, in the realm of either a school counselor or someone who's in discipline of students, there's certain levels of escalation when it comes to contacting a student and or a parent. Would that be right?
I would agree with that, yes.
Okay. So there's a check-in.
Your Honor, I would ask that the witness answer the questions and avoid the leading questions.
Please.
All right, great. Okay, so earlier you testified that you had just met with the student's teacher in September of 2021.
Yes,
Okay, and you felt that was sufficient at that point.
yes, because I was able to gain more context.
Okay. November the 10th of 2000, well, actually, you met with him November the 11th, 2021. You took the next step to meet with him.
Yes,
Okay. And now a decision was made, you just testified that to actually bring the student into the office.
that decision was made. I was not the one who made that decision.
Sure. But as far as you're concerned in your role, what are the levels of escalation to contact either a parent or somebody else?
It depends on the situation. If it's a discipline issue, I would be contacting a dean or a principal. And then they would be the ones leading the meeting from there. If it's a social emotional issue, or if I feel the student is at risk of harm to themselves, I would be contacting a parent in that case.
Okay. So you said it was Pam Fine who was on that initial email, and what was her role at Oxford High School?
She was a restorative practices coordinator at that time.
So tell me what happened after you received that phone call.
I walked to Pam Fine's office, and the student had been called down and then walked into her office.
Okay, the student being the defendant's son?
Yes.
Okay, tell us about that meeting.
It was fairly brief. I was there as student support throughout the meeting, not to have direct conversation about the content of the meeting, but it was really a chance to get an idea of what he was looking at and why.
Okay. When you said you were there for the standpoint of student support, what does that mean?
Well, when a student is facing a potential discipline issue, it's fairly common to call a counselor in, as we are not the ones issuing the discipline in that case, but we can be a person there who's in the corner for the student.
So is that intentional to keep the discipline separate from the counselor?
Yes.
Why is that?
Because the counselor is not a role of disciplinarian, the counselor is a role of student support.
So your focus then would be on the mental health and well-being of the student, not if the school rule was violated.
That is correct.
But you said the meeting was fairly short.
It was less than 10 minutes.
Was a decision made to take the next step to contact a parent?
There was a phone call to the parent after the meeting.
Okay, now, do you know how that decision was made and why?
I do not know how that decision was made or why.
Okay. Were you there for that phone call?
I was.
And was it a voicemail?
It was a voicemail.
Okay. And who made it? You or Ms. Fine?
Ms. Fine is the one who made the phone call.
Now, when was the next time you had any interaction? Well, first we'll go through the rest of 158 here. It'll be on your screen.
Okay.
This is when it was the email forwarded to you at 9:34. Can you read this email, please?
I sent the following email to Nick and Pam. I wanted to make you aware as well. I'm not sure if you had any contact with this student.
Okay, now who's Nick?
Nick was a dean of students at Oxford High School at the time.
Okay. And 9:36 a.m., you responded to the email. What did you write?
Thanks, Jacqueline. I'll be touching base with him as well.
Okay, thank you. Now, when is the next time that you had contact with the defendant's son?
It would have been the following morning of November 30th.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's already been admitted as 159. This is also an email. This is Tuesday, November 30th, 2021 at 8:05 a.m. And you were on this initial email, correct?
Yes.
Okay, did you tell us what the email says, please?
I know Jackie emailed you guys yesterday with some concerns about student in our first hour class. Today he is watching videos on his phone of a guy gunning down people. It looks like it's a movie scene and not security footage / a real event, but definitely still concerning when taking into account some of his other behaviors.
Okay, so this email was sent at 8:05 a.m. the morning of the shooting. What
Yes.
time did you receive it?
Well, I received it at 8:05. I believe I responded and saw it about 30 minutes later,
I'm sorry, that was a bad question. If you recall, what time did you actually read it?
around 8:30.
What was your reaction when you read the email?
My first reaction was, here we go again, of another conversation of you have to follow school rules, you have to be able to make decisions that aren't going to be detrimental to your time in class.
Okay. Now, did you receive, subsequently you met with that student, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, but before you did you receive another email regarding him?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, well, did you receive another email regarding the defendant's son that day?
I did, but it was, what happened was a math teacher showed a picture to our dean of students, Nikki.
Okay, so I'm gonna show you 160, what's been admitted.
Okay.
This is from a teacher to you and Mr. Ejak, who references the dean of students.
Yes.
This was sent 9:32 a.m. and this was a photograph of a drawing by the defendant's son.
Yes, this was sent after I already had defendant's son in my office.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit then. You looked at the first email around 8:30 in the morning, you said?
Yes.
Okay, and then what decision did you make and why?
I was on the phone when I saw the email, and upon hanging up the phone, I actually had Mr. Ejak come to my office
Why is that?
because he had been shown the math assignment, which is attached in the email currently on the screen.
Okay. And then tell me about that conversation.
He mentioned that Ms. Morgan had shown him this picture. I said, Ethan, because I had his schedule up on my computer going to planning on talking with him.
Okay.
And then I made the decision as the counselor to go into his class because it is, when a counselor goes into a class, it could be for anything.
Okay. And you said you had made the decision to speak with him. Was that because of the email you received before Mr. Ejak came and saw you, or another reason?
It was based on the email that I received.
Okay.
And then when I already had the information that there was an assignment of some sort going on, then it solidified that decision even further that I was going to talk to the student.
Okay. Did Mr. Ejak show that to you, or did you see it from the email?
I did not see it until I saw the assignment in person in the class.
In person?
He was shown a picture of it on the phone.
Who's he?
Mr. Ejak
Okay.
was shown a picture of it on a cell phone.
All right.
So I had not seen the assignment at that point.
All right. And you made the decision to retrieve the defendant's son from class and bring him to your office.
Yes, his classroom was actually close to my office when he was in that hour.
Okay.
And so I made the decision that as a counselor, it would be easier for me to walk in there because that's a pretty common thing. And then I ended up grabbing the assignment and walking back to my office with the student.
Okay. Now, the first time you saw that assignment was in person in that classroom. That's correct?
I really didn't look at it much. I had it,
Okay.
but I wasn't studying it as we were walking back to my office.
Okay. This is Exhibit 123. It's already been admitted. Now, there's things drawn out in words added and certain words crossed out. Was this the assignment that you retrieved from the defendant's son's classroom?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And then you brought the defendant's son back to your office. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then when would you say is the first time that you really took a look at this?
A couple minutes after being back into my office was when I really took a look at it.
Okay.
I went through the email I received with him
With
from
who? The
Allison
defendant's son?
Yes.
Okay.
The email from Allison Karpinski, and then sought clarification on that email. And then after receiving the clarification from the student on that email, I then looked over the paper with the defendant's son.
Okay. And what was your thought when you saw this paper, Exhibit 123?
My first thought was I wanted to get from him what he was doing. His initial response was that it was a video game, that he liked drawing for video games and liked being able to create in that way. So I let him describe it in that way at first, and then I asked him to talk about some of the words that he had written down.
Okay. By this
because
point,
those stuck out to me.
so by this point, had you seen the original drawing?
No,
Okay. So the words you were asking to explain were on this sheet here, 123.
that is correct.
Okay. So what words in particular stood out to you?
I noticed the words of "I love my life so much," "the thoughts won't stop." I could make out "help me" under the crossed out part, and "harmless act." So it made me concerned that a student may potentially be suicidal or be displaying suicidal ideation.
Okay. So I take it you didn't take the defendant's son explanation at face value.
I didn't take it at face value. I accounted for it as his description, but I wanted to make sure that I was looking at as much of a picture as I could.
Okay. So when you reviewed this drawing, and again, this is before you saw the original drawing, did you decide then to ask more pointed questions?
I did. I really wanted to point out the words that were in the drawing because they were the easiest to see, and I wanted to get explanation for the words that wasn't just, it's a video game.
Okay. Now, when you were speaking with the defendant son in your office, did he have a mask on?
He did.
Okay. Did you have a mask on?
I did.
Could you tell what his demeanor was at that point?
As best as you could, without complete facial expression. You still have tone of voice, you still have pace of speech.
At this point, you never actually interacted with him without a mask. Would that be right?
That is correct.
So when you ask more pointed questions, tell us what happened next and why.
His demeanor at first was very compliant. And as I started asking about the words and asking him to describe the words, his demeanor shifted towards more of a sad demeanor.
Okay.
He started sharing some things that had gone on in his life.
Like what?
He mentioned that a family dog had died recently. He mentioned that a grandparent had passed, that he was struggling with COVID and with school through COVID. And he mentioned that he had an argument with his parents about grades the night before.
Okay. Did he tell you that a friend of his had abruptly left the state?
He did mention that a friend of his had left. He didn't say the state, just wasn't attending school anymore.
Okay. Now, did you make a decision based upon your conversation with him to call Jennifer Crumbley?
I did.
Okay. Now, is that before or after you saw the original drawing?
I don't remember.
Okay. So during this conversation with the defendant's son, did you have the opportunity to look at the original drawing?
I did receive the original drawing in an email, probably 25 to 30 minutes after retrieving him from class.
So this is Exhibit 74. It's already been admitted. This is the original drawing that was shared with you?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what about this drawing causes you concern as well?
This drawing also gave me a lot of concerns of suicide. When I looked at it and I saw one body, when I looked at it and saw words that were internalized of "the thoughts won't stop, help me," I started becoming concerned about the student's well-being and made the decision that I needed to involve parents.
Okay. So we had talked about checking with the teacher, checking with the student, calling the student in to the office, then a phone call to the parent. Now you decided to not just call the parent, but also call them in?
I did.
Okay. Now in the range of options with the counselor dealing with a parent, this is be the highest option, would that be right?
This would definitely be up there, yes.
Okay. So when was that decision made? How long, let me ask you this, how long were you with the defendant's son before you made that decision to call his mother?
To the best of my memory, at least 20 minutes.
Okay, so in that 20-minute time span though, you made the decision to bring her in?
I did.
Okay. Tell us how that happened.
I asked, I actually told the student what I was going to do. I said, here's where we're at, and here's what I have to do. And I let him know that in this case, I need to call your parents and get them involved because I want to make sure we get you help and support.
Okay.
I then gave student the option to choose which parent he wanted me to call. I do that quite frequently because it gives you an insight into the student a little bit. Sometimes they might say, please don't call this parent. And student's response was it would be easier to get a hold of mom. So we called mom.
Okay. Now, did you tell him that you had concerns of suicidal ideation before you called Jennifer Crumbley?
I do not believe that I told him that, no.
And you indicated that you had seen in the fall of 2021 other aspects of suicidal ideation in other students?
Yes.
Okay. And you said even some students had even attempted suicide?
Sadly, yes.
Okay. So you've had these sort of meetings where you call a parent in before?
I have.
Okay. And you said it was the defendant's son to call Jennifer Crumbley, or at least you'd have an easier time getting a hold of her?
Yeah, that was the statement. So I called mom, and I
Mom
believe,
being the defendant, Jennifer Crumbley?
yes, that is correct. And she was unable to answer that phone call. So I then asked,
Well, how do you know that? It went to voicemail?
yes,
Okay.
she did not answer
She
that
did not
phone
answer.
call.
Okay.
And so I asked the student if it was okay for me to call his dad, and he said yes. I called dad, and it sounded like there was an answer, but it was also kind of like just dead air on the phone.
Okay.
So I hung up, and a few moments later, I received a phone call back from Jennifer Crumbley.
Okay, now if I told you that we had phone logs admitted into evidence that showed you left a message for Jennifer Crumbley at 9:24 a.m., would that sound right to you?
That sounds about right, yes.
Okay, and then it appeared from those same records that she had called you back at 9:27 a.m. Does that also sound right?
That sounds about right.
Okay. Tell us about that conversation between you and Jennifer Crumbley at 9:27 a.m.
I let her know that I had the student in my office and I had some concerns and was hoping that she would be able to come into the school.
Was that on your office line?
It was on my office line, yes.
Did you have the cell phone to your ear, or was it speakerphone?
At that point, it was to my ear. And I believe that mom asked to speak with Ethan, or the student. So I then put it on speakerphone and allowed them to talk to each other as well.
Okay, tell me about that, please.
Mom asked the student what was going on. And he didn't really have much, just kind of.
Okay. Did you tell the defendant that you had a drawing you were going to send her, the math worksheet?
I believe I did, yes.
Okay.
And then I sent it to her,
Okay.
to her cell phone.
And did she comment on that drawing, that math worksheet to you while she was on the phone with you?
Not to my memory.
You indicated to Jennifer Crumbley that you needed her to come into the office. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay. Did she say, okay, I'll be right there? Or did she say something else?
She was hoping that Dad would be able to do it, that it would be difficult for her to get there, to leave work, and that she worked approximately 30 minutes from the school.
Okay. And that was 9:27 a.m. And when she told you that it'd be difficult for her to come there, was that on speakerphone?
I do not remember.
Okay. So what was from the records, it shows about a 5-minute phone call between you and Jennifer Crumbley at that point in time. Were you left with the impression that she was on her way then, or that you had to find another parent?
I was left with the impression that she was going to try and contact Dad, to have Dad come. And then approximately 10 minutes later, she called again saying that she was unable to get a hold of Dad, and that she would be on her way.
Okay. She being Jennifer Crumbley.
Yes, that is correct.
All right. And you said you forwarded this Exhibit 74 to Jennifer Crumbley.
This was forwarded in the email.
Okay. And then this Exhibit 123 was also forwarded to her.
That was texted to her cell phone.
Texted Jennifer Crumbley's cell phone.
Yes.
All right.
Is this a good or bad time to break?
This would be fine.
Yeah, their lunch is here. So,